What do I do with that? Yeah. I lost my
I'd like to welcome you here and to the meeting with Mayor Webster and a couple people from his team. And the reason for the meeting is to kind of understand the earnings tax increase. We invited 125 business owners in Springdale that were listed on the Springdale Chamber of Commerce to come and learn about it. I'm discouraged there's so few here. I think there's only people from Frame USA, one other place, and a couple people online. I consider it a very big increase, and our employees are really, when they find out about it, really going to be disappointed. They'll consider it a big increase too, I know, because I've talked to a couple of them about it. So we're concerned about the situation Springdale's in, but at the same time, I'm concerned about 65 people that work here. And so with that in mind, I asked the mayor to come, tell us about the proposed tax increase so that we can understand it. And I appreciate you coming, Mayor Webster. Come on up.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Let me just take a few minutes here to introduce the city staff we've got with us. We've got our elected finance director, Mrs. Kathy McNear, and chairman of our council finance committee, Mr. Lawrence Hawkins, vice president of council also. We've got three staff members here with us. Jeff Williams is our finance officer. Amanda Zimmerlin is our assistant city administrator, and Christina Engel is our HR director. So with that said, and we also have Julie Matheny is with us today. She's the president of the Chamber, Springdale Chamber of Commerce. In full disclosure, it's also my daughter. So anyway, Dan, I just want to say thank you very much for hosting this thing. It's a shame that we didn't have more businesses that take an interest and come out today. But anyway, hopefully this will be replayed, I understand, in some form or fashion. So just let me start off by saying this. I absolutely hate taxes. I hate them just as much as anybody else. I hate them as much as Dan's 65 employees. As a matter of fact, last week, I got this big envelope in the mail. It was from my CPA. It was my 2018 taxes. So I opened it up, and I said, oh my God. First thing I did, I called my daughter. And I said, Julie, are you okay? And she says, well, sure, why, Dad? And I said, well, the damn government just took all my money. I wonder if they confiscated my firstborn also in the process. So anyway, needs to say a little exaggeration, but just put it in perspective the way I feel about taxes. But as a public official, somewhere along the way, you have to reconcile the fact that it's a necessary evil, that the government doesn't run on air. It runs on funds, it runs on money that comes from taxes, fees, either property taxes or earnings tax. But anyway, I'm here today to try to explain to you how we got in this situation and what made us take this measure. Now, I also want to comment before I get too far into this presentation. Mr. Reginald here has been responsible, or partially responsible. I'm not sure how much credit he wants to take, but he was very instrumental in getting the death tax done away with in the state of Ohio. And I think that's very notable. And none of us want to pay taxes where we're living, and we sure don't want to pass that on to our heirs. So Dan, I'll talk about the adverse effects of that in Springdale in a minute, but anyway, thank you very much for your contribution there. And I think that's sort of why we're here today and why Dan felt he wanted to do this. I think it's our responsibility as elected officials to go to the business community and the residential community and explain what's happening, why it's happening, and what the repercussions of that are. And that's why we're here today. So anyway, once again, thanks for making that happen. The last thing I want to do today is to create a big partisan political fight here. But I am going to make this statement, and if I offend you, I apologize up front. But I'm standing here today in front of you folks because of one person, and one person only, and that's Mr. John Kasich. And what John Kasich did to this state's finances is terrible, just absolutely terrible. Now, we've got a slide here. Let's see, are we? I'm having trouble with the lights, but anyway, I trust Christina will keep up with me, or I'll keep up with her, one or the other. In January, City Council decided, at the recommendation of the administration, to put this issue on the ballot to raise our earnings tax 0.5% from 1.5% to 2%. Now, why is the city in this situation? Well, let me give you a little background. In 2012, the state of Ohio started reducing the sharing of the local government fund. Now, the local government fund is made up of income tax that all of us pay, sales tax that all of us pay. It's money that's generated locally throughout the state, sent to Columbus, and for 30 years, the state has seen fit to share that. Now, there's been some tweaking of the formula over the years, but for the most part, they've been pretty generous in sharing that with villages and cities and townships, and even to some degree the school districts. But in 2012, they decided they're going to start reducing that sharing. Today, that's costing this city $385,000 a year. That's what we're losing out of the local government fund. The budget that Mr. DeWine just submitted has no restoration of those funds in it at all. So we're not going to get any relief from Columbus, pure and simple. Now, as I alluded to earlier, we no longer have a death tax. Now, this community has a huge retirement community, which I'm sure you're all aware of, down the street here. A lot of people. As those people died, we got an inheritance tax. And that averaged about $790,000 a year. Huge windfall for the city, unfortunately, when those people died. But we're the ones that have to provide the services for them. And that's a lot of money, $790,000 out of our budget. Now, the state also decided, in their infinite wisdom, to eliminate the tangible personal property tax. Now, if you're a business person in the community here, you probably go, well, good, I shouldn't have to pay tax on my equipment and my inventory and so on and so on. Well, okay, I understand that. But that's another $284,000 that came out of the city's budget. Now, the last item, and I can't blame our former governor for this, but several of our large businesses, including Tri-County Mall, went down to the Hamilton County Auditor's office, asked for their property value to be decreased. And what that did, actually, was reduce their property taxes. With that, those companies that did that are now costing the city about $360,000 a year less in property tax than we got back in 2012. So I don't know whether any of you have your pocket calculators with you or your mental calculators working, but that totals a cool $1.6 million that we're now trying to operate the city on, or we are operating the city on that. Now, the service levels haven't changed. We haven't cut anybody's, we haven't cut any police officers. We haven't reduced our fire department, less life squads or anything else. Quite the contrary. A couple years ago, 2 years ago, I guess, we had to replace one of our fire pumpers, $600,000. Well, I understand Sharonville just had to do it in the last couple of years. They wrote a check when the piece of equipment was delivered. Unfortunately, we're not in that situation. So we had to finance it over 3 years. So we've got 3 payments of like $200,000 a year. Now, once we get through with that, we're going to have another one waiting. So same thing. If we're through with that, we'll probably have to take a look at our ladder wagon, which is about $1,200,000. But anyway, I digress. There was a big article in the Enquirer last November the 4th that sort of detailed what's happened to various communities throughout the state and how they've coped with these cuts coming out of Columbus. And it indicated that 34% of the communities that have an earnings tax tried to fill that gap with raising the earnings taxes we're trying to do here today. So 34% have already done what we're looking at trying to do this May. The next slide here shows how our revenue stream has declined. And then the next one shows what it's done to our ending balance. And I think this is the one that affects the ending balance, I think is tremendously important, because the last 2 years, this city has spent about $1.3 million, $1.4 million more in providing services than it's taken in. So it's, whether it's your private budget or a city budget, you can't continue to survive spending more than what you're taking in. And here again, the State Finance Association makes a recommendation to cities that you should have about 10% of your budget to carry over, to carry the city into January, February the next year. Now, in our case, we got about a $20 million general fund budget. So that would equate to about $2 million carryover. Now that's a little high. We've always managed to like about 7.5% or $1.5 million carryover. This year, the budget that we're operating on, we show a carryover of less than 5%. So we're slightly less than $1 million carryover. Now that's very, very concerning to us. And it's something that I think it just points out there's a structural problem with the revenue stream, and we don't correct it now, we're going to have some severe problems as we go forward. Now, you might ask, what are you going to do with this money? Well, let me just give you a couple of examples here. We've got some tremendous expenses facing us and some deferred maintenance or capital items. Primarily the roof at our municipal building. That building is 27 years old. Comes a storm, any kind of heavy rain, buckets all over the place. That roof needs to be replaced. We don't have the money to do that. This December, I think it was the first or second week of our youth basketball league. We have a double gym in our new, as we call it, new gym. It's about 20 years old now. But anyway, get ready to start the games. Here the water comes in. Roof is leaking like crazy. I think Mr. Hawkins, I think firsthand saw that. He and our other member of our finance committee couldn't wait for the next finance committee meeting to show me these pictures of these buckets all over the gym. Well, fortunately, we were able to move some or all of those games into an auxiliary gym. I guess we got the program completed that day, just a little delayed. But anyway, that roof also needs to be replaced. We've got a real deficiency in our police department. We've been in that building since 1973. The building is sinking, the rear end is sinking. We need some repairs made to that building. We are not today providing equal facilities for our the female members of our police department, our clerks and our police officers. Those women do not have shower facilities and locker room that come anywhere near matching what we provide our male officers. And that's got to be corrected. It cannot continue. So anyway, if you look at just those three big things, that's about $1 million worth of deferred capital improvements or maintenance that we put off. Now, I was reviewing this presentation yesterday with our city administrator, who's not here today because by charter, he cannot participate in these events. So that's why he sent his trusted assistant here, Amanda. But tells me he gets a call yesterday morning from our fire chief. John, we got a problem over here. The roof is leaking. We got to put buckets all over the fire department. So that's one that we don't even have on the list. And here again, that's a building that's, test my memory here, but I think we moved in maybe 77, 78, something like that, a long time ago. Another thing that we deleted out of this year's budget was any rolling stock items, meaning fire, cruisers, trucks, any kind of stuff that's got wheels on it, if you will. Since I've been associated with the city, since 1971, we've always replaced at least 3 of our police cruisers. Now these cruisers are on the road 24/7, and we'll put 75, 80,000 miles a year on these cruisers. And if you've got to replace them, if you don't, I mean, the maintenance system will eat you up, and you're not going to have the availability of the cruisers. So anyway, over time, it's proven that if we replace 3 a year, we're in pretty good shape. So we took that out of the budget. We don't have enough money for that. We need another chipper. We took that out of the budget. It was $60,000. So somewhere along the way, we're gonna have to go back and address those things. And now I equate that situation just like we've had to go through with our street maintenance program. And here again, over time, it's proven that we need to spend about $700,000 a year on our residential streets. I don't know how many street miles we have in the city, but anyway, it's we're saving almost 5 square miles. And but anyway, 700,000 is the number that we need to put aside. So hard times hit us back in 09 and 10. We said, we just can't afford to put this away this year. So we didn't use it. We didn't put it away. So next year, same thing. We didn't put it away. We didn't put it away. We didn't put it away. Come 2016, the streets are in such bad shape that we had to go out and sell a bond just to have the revenues to fix our streets, to bring them up to where they needed to be. $8.2 million in bonds we sold. And we'll be paying for those for the next 15 years. Now, all that did was bring the streets up to par in 2017 and 18. So what are we gonna do going forward? You know how much we got put aside in 19 for those streets? 0. We may have 100,000 there for emergency repairs, but nothing to go into a subdivision and redo the streets. So we're going down the same rat hole that we just got ourselves out of. And I see us doing the same thing with the rolling stock. As we put that stuff off, it's going to come back and bite us sooner or later. So in order to get these things back on the regular schedule and provide the services that we need to provide, we had to do something. So anyway, I think the state's been very judicious in its personnel, its staffing. We currently have like 136 people that is approved staffing levels. Now, it's been a long time since we've had 136. Today, we stand around 120 people. And I can stand here before you today and guarantee you that if this passes, we are not going to run out and add 16 people to the staff. We're not going to, I don't think we're going to run 6 people. We do need to adjust our road maintenance department. We need some reinforcements there, but we're talking 1 or 2 people. So we're not going to blow everything just because this passes. Now, this next slide is probably a sore point with the business community because it talks about it's the one I think, it talks about who pays this tax and who gets to vote on it. Now, if you're a business person, you probably think, gosh, this is taxation without representation because I don't get to vote on this. Well, I agree with you, it is. But we didn't make the rules. And for 45 years, I worked downtown Cincinnati and I left 2.1 of my salary down there for the most part, the whole 45 years. I never have any say at all on what the city did with my money. But same thing happens today. If somebody lives in the city, lives in Springdale, and they work in Cincinnati, they pay 2.5%, they come back here, we give them 100% credit. So this would not affect them. Going forward, the same thing has happened. So, taxation without representation. All right, granted, maybe that's the case, but I would ask that the business community consider this. That just last week, Mrs. Zimmerman here had our police department go back and review their call logs for the last 15 months. Much to our surprise, 50% of those calls were non-residential in nature. And we have a police force of 32 sworn police officers. Okay, so we don't come up with the money, we don't pass the levy. So all of a sudden now we don't have 32 police officers, sworn police officers. So that shrinks. So is the number of calls going to shrink? I don't think so. So I think for a community of 11,200 people to have a police department of 32 sworn police officers is abnormal. It's a lot of police officers for 11,002, but we have a community, a daytime community of 30 or 40,000 people. If you look at the employees and the shoppers and the visitors of this community. So it's necessary and it's justified. And we want to make sure that we continue to provide the extreme high level of service that we provide with our police department. We have a lot of other activities that other than just patrolling the streets. We have various community programs that will come into a company and will conduct training for you and so forth and so on safety measures and this kind of stuff. Public Works Department, this is one I take a lot of pride in. And they take a lot of pride in the fact that they keep these streets in great condition throughout the winter. I think if any of you live, business community, or employees for that matter, live in another community, when you come into work, you know when you've crossed the boundary into Springdale, because the streets are in great shape. They're a lot better than the 4 or 5 surrounding communities. I can guarantee you that. And our Public Works Department takes a lot of pride in that. I guess the other question is that, does this make us non-competitive with the other communities? And I think that the chart we've got up there certainly shows that is not the case. There are currently 32 communities in Hamilton County that have an earnings tax. Now, when you compare those, you can't just compare the rate. You have to compare what kind of credit they're giving for taxes paid outside of the city. And when you take a look at both of those factors, that there are 20 of the 32 communities that have an earnings tax that equal to or higher than Springdale will have if this passes. So I don't think we're abnormal, and we're going to stand out like a sore thumb here with this. And I think the same thing shows with our property tax. And this was the other avenue we could have pursued with this. We could have said, well, instead of doing the earnings tax, let's just do an operating levy, put it on everybody's property tax, which every business would have to pay, along with every resident. To generate the same amount of money that this is going to generate, we would have to go for 11 mills. Now, there's no way the sun that 11 mill levy is going to pass, or any community. So we elected not to do that. And here again, the chart here shows you that out of the 37 taxing communities, Springdale ranks 8th from the bottom. So in other words, there are only 7 communities out of the 37 that have a lower property tax rate than the city of Springdale. So I do not think that we are standing out like a sore thumb here. I think we're still very, very competitive. Now, in closing, just let me share one other fact with you. When my favorite governor took office, he inherited a rainy day fund of $1.87. $1.87. He left office a couple months ago. The balance in his rainy day fund was $2.7 billion. Now, billion with a B. Now, you would, and that's the legal limit. Constitution of the state of Ohio says 2.7 is the max you can put in the rainy day fund. Now, you would think that once they hit that max, that they'd go back and look at, well, where we've been getting this money to put in this fund. Well, they've been getting it on the backs of the cities and the towns, townships, and so forth. So you would think they'd restore that. You would think Mr. DeWine in his budget for 2020, I guess he just submitted, would have some money in there for that. Zero. So anyway, that's the end of my presentation. Certainly be happy to take any questions. And yes, Mr. McNear and Mr. Hawkins, you guys, anything you want to add? Or? Okay.
Thank you again. I'm Lawrence Hawkins III, Vice President of the Council and Chairman of the Finance Director. I just want to echo the sentiments of the mayor, and just so everybody understands in terms of, as council, I'm not going to speak for the other 6 members. When this matter came before the Finance Committee, initially from administration with this recommendation, and the administration laid out all the same information the mayor just went over, it was clear that there was one option to go down. I've been on council since 2009, and that's really the beginning of a lot of these issues. Some of these things with the personal property tax took place a little bit before that, but it was during that time, in that era, when we lost the state tax. Is around that same time when we lost the local government fund. And so the impact on the city is very real. And we see that every time we go around the budget time and try to put together the services and funding to take care of things. The reality is, from even back in 2009, 2010, the city has been doing things to try to alleviate and manage the situation. And the administration has been very proactive, and as a result, the elected officials have been very proactive even back then. And there are a lot of communities that didn't do anything when these things were taking place with regard to losing money for local government fund and the estate tax. Over those 10 years, at various points in times, we've done furloughs for employees, we've frozen wages, we've decreased hours of operation at times, we've foregone activities such as summer festivals, events, fireworks, things of that nature, that have not just been for our community, but for the greater area, including businesses, as well as neighboring communities. We've limited our rolling stock, increasing and switching out, as the mayor indicated. And our workforce had decreased. Well, we did not bring back people that retired in a lot of instances. And one of the big things that I think we've seen before, and we've got comments from business owners before, we were used to taking care of the roads with about $700 to $1 million a year that we would put in. Over those last 10 years, we haven't done anything close to that. A lot of times you maybe got $300,000 into it, but that's just a result of we didn't have the money to go through and do that. And the result is you end up backed up. And so as we've had to go through, as the mayor indicated, spending millions of dollars to catch up on those things, as we've tried to be fiscally responsible in terms of managing what we have, you can't do that forever. So, you know, some of the things that are beyond our control, we've done, I think, a great job in terms of managing those issues. But there comes a time when you have to look to do something else in terms of managing the lack of revenue that we're dealing with. At the same time, having to take care of our costs, which we're doing in a way that we want to make sure we can maintain the services that our business owners and our residents are accustomed to having. So that's the main thing I just wanted to add in there.
So I wanted to apologize to everybody. When the mayor was over Friday, he said, make it nice and cold in here so that nobody falls asleep. I think I hit cool instead of heat. I'm sorry. Just a couple questions I didn't get from the presentation. The deficit that you project right now is how much? Do you have those numbers, Mr. Hawkins?
The carryover balance, we put this budget together, looked at about $800,000 into 2020. Now we've had a few extra dollars turned back in that was not spent in 2018. So that's gonna be right at $1 million.
Okay, so it's about $1 million deficit. And how much additional revenue would the tax increase bring?
For a full year, which we would not see the results of until 2021, would be about $3.3 million.
So it would be about $2.3 million more than what you need to cover your deficit.
Today's deficit, right?
Today's deficit. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any questions you want to ask? Could you speak in?
Sure, absolutely. I'm Josh Winnie. I think we're the #1 employer in Springdale. We probably have about 500 employees in the Springdale area, 28 million in payroll, so probably 500,000 in tax to you, and then probably will be 600 plus after this increase. You know, obviously, an employee gets a paycheck. They really don't look sometimes at the bottom line when it comes to their city taxes. I think this will affect a lot of our employees. I mean, it's getting tougher and tougher every day when we to find employees, #1, but also the net take-home pay is really difficult in our industry. So, I mean, to think that this increase won't affect, I don't think the majority of them live in Springdale either. So, and how many live in Cincinnati, city of Cincinnati? Not many either. So this will be a tax on them. I think if they're in Mason, Westchester, I believe those rates are still 1.5%. Is that correct? I didn't see on the chart.
Yeah, Westchester, I don't even have
0. Yeah. So this is a tax, and so this will affect them. You know, we're committed to Springdale. You know, Jake Sweeney is. We're here. We go right out of here. We're building another building. It's going to increase your property revenue. You know, I just heard about this, Dan. I'm sorry, on Monday or Tuesday, and I got your note. So to absorb this, I understand. What's the solution? I don't know. I know employees won't be happy But I understand you guys have issues as well, and the state has issues too with taxes. So all I can ask is that I can't control this. What the citizens of Springdale are going to do. I don't live in Glendale, not in Springdale, so I won't be voting on this. And I don't know what your thoughts are if this will pass. If it does, it passes. All I can ask is that Springdale be a good business partner with Jake Sweeney and help us in ways that help Springdale, you know, because we are a good community partner here. We
Sure.
want to continue to bring employees here. You know, our manufacturers don't think this is the best community to be in. I'll say that. I mean, every manufacturer who comes and looks at Springdale, they say, we want you to be out on 129 in Butler County. We want you to be out in Monroe. And we say, no, we're here in Cincinnati and we can sell cars here. And we sell a lot of cars here still. We're still one of the best. So we believe in Springdale. I would just say that if there's opportunities for the city to come to Jake Sweeney and say, hey, how do we keep Jake Sweeney here and be a good partner to do that? You know, we've had those situations. It was very difficult for us to get even parked cars, you know, over in the mall. It was impossible. It was difficult. And, you know, to make that difficult for someone like us, because every one of those cars we sell, guess what? That is commission to a salesperson, which becomes income the city of Springdale that we pay that person for. And it was very difficult for us to do that. When we try to build buildings or do things a certain way, it's tough because you guys are saying, well, you got to plant this tree here, that here, and you have to make it look like this. You got to consider the fact that trees and cars don't go together, or for signage to be a certain way. That's where I guess as a business person can convey to you what we need to stay in Springdale. I'm not going to stop you from raising the taxes. I don't feel like it's just me hearing that it's going to cost our employees an extra $250,000 or $200,000 a year combined to be in Springdale. But, you know, there's lots of opportunities, I think, for Jake Sweeney to stay here and for Springdale to work with Jake Sweeney and make it easier for us to find savings and keep our company growing in Springdale and keep people coming to Springdale. Because I think if these car dealerships are gone and not in Springdale anymore, well, there's 500 less people that are coming and buying fast food, buying stuff at the mall, buying whatchamacallit that are around here, and also just that many less people coming here for service every day to get their car serviced. We write 15,000 repair orders at our per year at our Chevrolet store alone. So that's 15,000 cars driving off 275, pulling in here, and yeah, they're stopping at Dunkin' Donuts, stopping at Starbucks, maybe getting a meal, going into the mall, what's left in the mall. I just want you to, you know, grasp how important it is that we keep that going. And sorry for my
That's all right.
so.
Just let me say, you know, we certainly value Jake Sweeney operation. It's one of the better enterprises we have in the city, if not the best.
You guys do a great
And,
job too.
so,
Your services are great. It's the little things that can get irritating.
we understand.
Yeah.
So if there's anything we can do, please give us a call and we'll try to help you through that. But we think that your move to the mall was a great move. Believe me.
Yeah, we agree to.
And we supported that. It just, we had some legal hoops we had to jump through, but please forgive us for that. But
Anybody else have a question or comment that they'd like to make?
My name's Ann Decker. I'm the controller here at Frame USA. And I just wanted to understand, you said only 7% of Springdale residents would be affected by the tax because of your full credit. So you're saying 93% of Springdale residents work somewhere that has over 1.5% tax rate, or would say be retired where they're not paying any income tax?
I think that was, I don't think that was people, that was dollars, I believe. That was 93% of the revenue generated.
Well, it says approximately 7% of Springdale residents would be affected because you give 100% credit for taxes they pay.
Right.
So,
All right, I'm wrong. You're right.
so that would have to mean that if, you know, currently 93% of your residents pay more than 1.5% in their work city, or they would be retired, say, where they would have no income tax.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
I'm Kelly Ackerman. I'm the COO here at Frame USA. So since it's an employee market right now, and what I mean by that is there's way more jobs available than as employers, we have a terrible time finding good talent these days because everybody's looking for people. As this gentleman from Jake Sweeney mentioned, people look at the bottom line of their paycheck. So if somebody's seen their paycheck drop from Frame USA and they can easily go to these other markets to find a new avenue and make more money on a daily basis, what are we as employers supposed to do to convince them? Because we're not the ones at fault here, yet they're gonna blame us. They're gonna say, Frame USA is taking more money out of my paycheck. So what do you recommend we tell our employees when they can go down the street to some of these other places and not lose that money on the bottom line?
Okay, and I understand your concern. I'm not trying to make light of that, but there was a reason why that person came to work for Frame USA.
Right, the bottom line is bottom line. I mean, there's a lot of people out there these days working paycheck to paycheck. So, I mean, what would you tell all those people?
Well, all I can do is tell you how it would have affected me if I was still working in Cincinnati, and they come along and they said we're gonna make it 2.5%. So I'd sit down and figure out what that 0.4% is going to equate to in dollars. Say, okay, do I want to change employers, change careers for that money? And in my case, I would have said no. Now, I'm sure the smaller your paycheck is, the more impact it's going to have. Even though the dollars are going to be smaller, it's going to be more of an impact. And I'm not sure. I mean, I think we are still we're in a great location as far as accessibility. The interstate system, 275 and 75, 71 is not that far away. So I think all of that factors into, the fact there was a reason why Dan Reginald located his business here in Springdale. And I think the location had a lot to do with it. I think the reason Jake Sweeney has been so prosperous here and continues to expand his business is because of the location. And I think that's a big selling point that we have. And I think the other point is, you could, you go to work someplace in Westchester or someplace that doesn't have, and Westchester is probably a bad example, but someplace got a volunteer fire department. All right, you want to take a chance on working someplace, you have a heart attack, and you got to wait for somebody to respond to the fire station, to pick up the ambulance, to respond to your heart attack. I mean, that's just one of the great services that we offer here. Same way with the police department. I think with this 32 sworn police officers on the street, we can respond to not all at once nationally, but I mean, we've got 4 or 5 police officers constantly, every shift. We can get to an emergency pretty darn quick, and the same with our squad. So I think those are the things that we have to sell.
And it's not an apples to apples comparison, because the mayor said, you're going to have unique things here from USA, some places not going to have, or Sweeney Chevrolet is going to have some unique things with regard to it and its workplace that someplace else is not going to have. And in terms of Springdale itself, in terms of its location, the services, even the accessibility of the rec center and things of that nature make it unique. I can tell you, I just moved my office from Woodlawn to Springdale. I could have gone to Westchester or someplace else, or some township where there's not going to be an earnings tax or a low earnings tax someplace else. I wanted to be here, and it's for some of those reasons. So I understand there are going to be some people that are going to be just worried about that bottom dollar amount, but they're not usually coming to you or coming to Sweeney Chevrolet for that initial purpose. That's going to be one thing they're going to consider. They're going to consider a lot of different things as they make those decisions. There's not a perfect solution for the business, the employer, to say, hey, I'm going to make this difference up to you some kind of way without you guys taking something off your bottom line. That's appreciated. But the other point I was trying to make initially was, this is not as though the city's first idea of a solution to take care of this problem. we've already gone through a number of different ideas and things over the last 10 years. We're still here because of decreasing revenue and still trying to provide the same services that businesses need. You guys need good roads so people can come through here, so you can attract folks to come in here and work. So there have been a lot of different sacrifices that have been made. And it's not that we are belittling the sacrifices that employers are going to make or employers are going to make. It's not, but it's important to note that we're not just sitting here going, hey, let's put this on the people that are working in the city of Springdale to take care of this issue. We've already done it with the people that are working for the city of Springdale years ago. So we're trying a whole bunch of different things. We've had residents where they don't get all the same services that they're used to having for same events. So this is a place where we've gotten to after a decade of trying a variety of different things. And you know, the hope is at some point revenue is going to increase and we're going to have some different things. And we're trying at the same time to look out for businesses. We've fixed roads and done things back on, you know, J. Sweeney Place, Boggs Lane, Northland, and fixing things because we're worried about making sure, and on Northland right here, making sure Frame USA that you guys have a nice environment, that your customers have a good environment to travel through, and employees as well. We're concerned about that. We are looking out for it. But it's one of those things. There's no perfect solution to it. Somebody's going to, at the end of the day, end up shortchanged, so to speak, or have to pay for this. That's just where we are.
So I haven't given you any indication if they're going to continue to bring back revenue sharing. Since I mean, obviously I know they have their own issues with Medicaid.
Well, I was very disappointed in Mr. DeWine's first budget. I thought surely we got a lot of new legislators up there. I thought sure somebody would pick up the flag and say, hey, we got to start restoring some of these. But nobody has. And the governor sure doesn't seem, the new governor certainly does not seem to be concerned about it.
I want to be respectful of your time. And just, I guess my last question would be, if the levy doesn't pass, what's your backup plan?
Our backup plan would be probably some of the measures that we implemented in 2009, where we had to ask employees to take furloughs, unpaid furloughs. We had to reduce the hours of our community center. We had to cut back on some services. And we just don't want to even think about that.
Okay. I want to thank you for coming. Appreciate
you, Dan.
it. I think you're right about the location. Great location. You guys have always been so responsive, and I appreciate that a lot. So for any business owner, Josh, that wants to watch a copy of this, they can watch it at that website right there. It'll be online this afternoon. You can tell your family if they're concerned about it, they can watch that there, as to anybody else who might want to. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks again. Thank all of you for coming.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank
Appreciate
you.
haven't been doing this.
All right.
Thank you. Yep. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Sorry I pushed you guys out of here today.